The amount of money the U.S. has spent on wars in Afghanistan and Iraq surpassed the $1 trillion mark last week, according to the National Priorities Project Cost of War Counter. To date, over $747 billion has been appropriated for the war in Iraq and $299 billion for the war in Afghanistan. We turn right now, in the last few minutes, to a man who has spent the last half-century pursuing nonviolent conflict resolution. He's known as the father of peace studies. His name is Johan Galtung. His latest book, The Fall of the U.S. Empire. And then what? Successors, regionalization or globalization, U.S. fascism or U.S. blossoming. We welcome you to Democracy Now!, Johan Galtung. As you survey the geopolitical landscape right now, and the wars that the U.S. is involved with, what are your thoughts?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's an empire against the wall, an empire in despair, an empire, I would say, in its last phase. My prediction in the book that is here, that you mentioned, The Fall of the U.S. Empire and Then What, is that it cannot last longer than till about 2020. In 1980, I predicted for the Soviet Empire that it will crack at its weakest point, the Wall of Berlin, within 10 years, and it happened in November 1989, and the Soviet Empire followed. So my prediction is a similar one for the U.S. Empire, and that could lead to the blossoming of the U.S.
Why do you say 10 years, that the U.S. Empire collapses in a decade?
Within 10 years, well, the prediction was made in year 2000, and I actually said 25 years. But then Bush was elected president, and his narrow vision, his fundamentalism, made me cut it by 5 years, because I saw him as an accelerator, which he certainly did, launching 3 wars: war on terrorism, war on Afghanistan, and war on Iraq. Now, this comes after the U.S. did not win 1953 in Korea and lost 30 April 1975 in Vietnam. In other words, we are now in war number 5 of major significance. That is typical for the decline of the empire, that it goes like that. When you ask me why did I have that time horizon, well, I made comparative study of quite a lot of declines of empires. I'm a little bit of an expert on that, actually. And there are certain factors that are similar. They rise and decline more quickly now. Of course, the 2 Roman empires, the Western and the Eastern, lasted longer. Now it's quicker. The U.S. started, I would say, in 1898, walking into the shoes of the dying or dead Spanish Empire. And we are now dealing with a phenomenon which is about 110, 112 years old. And as I told you, I put the upper limit at 2020.
When you ask, and then what, you say U.S. fascism or U.S. blossoming. What do you mean?
What we see right now is an intensification, spreading, special forces, increasing, let us say, from 30 to 45 countries. And that's exactly what you would expect. It's an effort to try to externalize, to say that there are enemies abroad that are trying to get at us, instead of saying the obvious, namely that we have made a construction, and that construction is dying itself. If you try to dominate the world economically, militarily, politically and culturally at the same time, and then having these 4 support each other, cannot last for a long time. And that's the phase we are in now. Now, in that period, there will be fascist reactions. It's not impossible that there could be a military coup in the US from the right. Not impossible within this period. But you see, I am much more optimistic than that. I think that the US is in for a blossoming period. Look at what happened to England when it got rid of its empire from 1965 on. Russia got rid of its empire from 1991. It took some time. There was a bad Yeltsin period. Right now, Russia is rising. see the
Johan
same in
Galtung.
France, you see it in Italy.
We're going to break now and bring our viewers and listeners part 2 of our conversation this week. Johan Galtung is known as the father of peace studies. His latest book, The Fall of the U.S. Empire and Then What? And that does it for today's broadcast. If you'd like a copy, go to our website to